Hey, my long distance enthusiast. I just got my Iron Butt Association 50cc Quest certificate in mail. I'm telling you, you know the feeling. It's like Christmas when that package shows up. And so it was just a great conclusion to an amazing trip. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you for the men and women who've gone before me. And so many of you have posted about your trip. I watched all those videos, things to pack, how to think about it. It was really helpful. So thanks for putting that content out there. On the big picture, this trip went great. I was really concerned that we'd be grinding out the hours in the middle of the night and just miserable that last stretch, and that wasn't the case. It was a blast. When we got to the end, I could have kept going. So I want to share with you a little bit our schedule and what we did. I said our because it started out, it was just going to be me. Certainly, I think had I done it by myself, I could have done it quicker. But I ended up asking a friend to come, and by the time we were done, there was 4 of us making this trek together. And in retrospect, it was a blast to be able to do it with a group of guys and share those memories together. There were some dynamics with the group, and I'll share a little bit of those things that we worked through, and hopefully that would be helpful to you. But I'm sure glad I did it with them, and we have a memory that we will share forever, as many of you can relate to. So a couple of thoughts. Number one was, I think, really defining what the goal is and how quick you want to do this trip. Are you trying to do it in just under 50 hours? Are you trying to get the gold standard and do it quicker? Because if you're going to just try to do it in 50, what worked for me was just to decide, listen, there's no value in doing it in 46 or 47 as long as you're in there before 50. So I put a premium on sleep, some rest, time off the bike. I had the margin pretty close. I had 45-minute window of margin, and but I just wanted to value being safe and really feeling like I was rested. And part of that, I think, led to the fact that you just had great energy throughout the whole trip because we did get some good time off the bike. And so let me share a little bit with how we did. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. We started at the Jacksonville part, went from Jacksonville then to San Diego. 3 of the 4 in our group had not done an Iron Butt, hadn't done a Saddle Sore 1000. And so one of the goals was to say, hey, let's do the 1000 together right off the bat. And so at least you accomplished that. And then the second day is bonus if we can get that done. And so that took a little pressure off me, who was leading the trip, to say, hey, let's get them through the first 1000. And then after that, you know, we can decide what we want to do. And that was really important. I'll come back to that. But I think if you're going with the group, is establishing what's the ground rules in terms of this. If one goes down, is everybody staying? Are we going? If you can make it, make it. If you can't, just pull over, and rest. And so we really established that at some point we're going to get everybody through the 1000. And in the second part, everybody's going to kind of ride their own ride, so to speak. We're going to go together, but if you're tired, no worries. Pull over, get some rest. If you have a mechanical breakdown, we're going to finish this because, like you, for many of us, we took vacation, put the expense into this. This was one time that we'll be able to do it now for a little while. And so that ground rule was really helpful, and that came into play certainly in our trip. I'll share that with you later. So we took off from Jacksonville. We left there, what time was that? We left at 8 in the morning. From Jacksonville, got our first receipt, and off we went. And so we put in the first 1,000 miles, and I was just pulling this up to be reminded. And we ended up just outside of Kingsbury, Texas, was the 1,000 mile. There's a Buc-ee's there. It was open all night, good place to stop and get a rest. So we did that first 1,000, and it really went well. One of the factors, though, as you think about a group, was we were very eclectic in terms of the bikes. So I've got a K1600 bagger, we had a Goldwing, we had a Harley Super Glide, and then we had a Ducati. I had originally planned the trip based if it was just me, I can get a little over 200 miles per tank. When our Harley entered the mix, that changed things. So we dropped down to 150 miles before, at the speed we were going, that he needed to stop. Speed-wise, we set cruise pretty much at about 83, hopped in the left lane and just cruised that way. But it certainly did decrease our gas mileage. We hit winds pretty much the whole trip, which really made a difference. But that 150 really changed things. That added, when it was just me, I had 11 stops. With the addition of the group and the smaller gas tanks, we ended up stopping 18 times. So those of you that have done these trips, stops are what make or break it, right? You're either in and out in 7 minutes or you're in and out in 25 minutes. And I had to really recalibrate in terms of the charting of that to say, okay, every 150 miles. It really worked out okay. I increased the amount of time that we were going to be at each stop. And just so I wasn't feeling like I was pushing the group each stop to try to get them going. That cut down on sleep time a little bit, but that all played out really well. 150 miles seemed really quick, but in a crazy way, it really sped the trip up. You know how it is. You're back on the bike. That first 50 goes by pretty quick, and now you're counting down from under 100. Pretty soon you're at an hour, and then you're stopping again. So that really helped with the saddle sore part of it. We stopped pretty regular, and we're pretty consistent that way. One of the things that really helped was that we set a stopwatch at the very start when we left Jacksonville at 50 hours, and it kept running down, so we didn't have to keep calculating time zone changes and everything else. We knew this was the time. It kept everybody on track, and it kept the tension in the ride, and I think really kept us moving. So we got off the bikes, and we took 8 hours and got a full night's sleep. We made up about 4 hours on the first 24. I think we did the Saddle Sore 1000 about 17 hours, right around there. So we had a couple hours there. We added a couple, and then we pulled out that next morning at 9:30 in the morning, and we got rolling there. Pretty uneventful. We were blessed to have good weather and no mechanical problems. We pulled into Tucson, Arizona that next night, and we pulled into Tucson. I was just trying to see here at midnight. And we had pulled into Tucson. This was the mistake we made. It actually was great to get off the bike. I think we were off 3.5 hours before we were back on. In Tucson, we had about half a tank of gas, and my thought was, hey, let's just get on, get an hour down the road, and then gas up, and it'll break that time up a little bit. What cost us is when we took out of Tucson, some of you may know this, I did not. The route we had there coming across Tucson, there was no gas stations. We were right on the Mexican border, border of Mexico there, and all the gas stations were across the border. And so I get a little over 200 miles. My gas tank was clicking on empty, so I knew the Harley and I knew the Ducati were in trouble. And I don't know how we made it. We made it in on fumes, and we're able to gas up. I was on fumes, so again, it's 50 extra miles that I got that they didn't. And that was the part that was like, we really about cost ourselves, because with no gas stations around, I don't think we could have left the bike there, gotten gas, got back and refilled them up and made it in time, because we had really, again, I had really put a pretty small window there. But we made it to the gas station. That was a breather, and I knew we were in great shape, and off we were for the last part of the ride. Our Ducati slipped the chain and was having trouble with the bike when we were about 2.5 hours out of San Diego. And I was really glad at that point we had made that decision together that if a bike goes down, we're going to keep moving on. So he was able to put it in a little lower gear, slow down, and a couple of us then just took off and really made some really good time down through the mountains. And it's a beautiful ride, of those of you that have done that there. And we rolled into San Diego there in pretty good shape. I had forgotten, as you think about those of you that are making that time, the city of San Diego, in order to get that receipt, you've got to get all the way down in there. San Diego University was the first exit, and I was thinking we were going to hit it early on, and that wasn't San Diego, and we went to get our gas receipt, so we added a little bit there. So we rolled in, made it with that about 30 minutes to spare. And then our second group, the gentleman that had the problem with the Ducati and the Goldwing, they rolled in about 20 minutes after us and made it under the gun. So it was a fantastic experience. Everybody got it done and had a great time. Things that I would do again, I would make sure in Tucson, every time we stopped, fill the tank up. That was just a foolish mistake that about cost us. We got in San Diego. We spent about 2 days. I probably would have stayed one more day in retrospect, just to kind of rest and relax a little bit more. We got back on the bikes right away, tried to go up Highway 1 to Crater Lake and in Oregon, and then made the long journey here back to Kentucky. So that you realize how far you go, how quickly, when it takes us 4 days to get all the way back from where we were, and that was a long ride, and nothing too exciting there. So that was what I learned. It was a great trip. I just encourage you, if you ever consider and do it, give it a shot. I think if you plan it out well, you can get enough sleep, and it'll be easier than you thought it was. If you're going with a group, just define on the front end what the goals, what the rules you're all going to agree to play by. Know the gas capacity of each of the bikes, because your smallest tank dictates the whole trip on how you're going to go. And then just have a blast. It was a great, a lifelong memory that I will always cherish. And so again, thanks for all of you that played a part of that and helping me learn and be ready. I'm looking forward to the next one. The Great Lakes 100 is the next thing I think that intrigues me, so we'll keep you tuned if that one comes in the mix. All right, thanks, guys.